without him and Rula, none of this would be happening to start with.
Yeah, he's been so humble because, of course, without him, none of this would be possible at all. Welcome to our event. Thank you all so much all for coming. I'm Halil Yenigun. I am the Associate Director of the Abbasi Program of Islamic Studies and the Middle Eastern Studies Forum under the Abbasi program. So today, we are going to talk about not difficult topics, but more relaxed topics, music. And who else could do this program, right, other than Ramzi, to talk about music. And when it comes to Lebanon, so when we thought about having an event on Lebanon, of course, who else would come to our minds other than Fairuz? So if you have already heard, I guess, maybe all of you have heard about Fairuz. If you haven't, you will love her for life. So, in this audiovisual talk, Dr. Ramzi Salti explores how Lebanon's tumultuous history relates to the enduring musical legacy of Fairuz. And he's going to examine pivotal junctures in Lebanon's past and present, using Fairuz's music as a lens to explore the country's shifting political, social, and cultural landscapes. So, who is Dr. Ramzi? Everybody knows, but still, we have to, give him his due. Dr. Salti is an advanced lecturer for the Arabic program, SLC, at Stanford University, and a fully certified ACTFL, Oral and Written Proficiency History of Arabic. Since the year 2000, he has continuously organized and emceed various events at Stanford and elsewhere that centered on various Arabic culture productions, post-colonial theory, pop culture, and the use of technology to enhance language proficiency in the classroom. So without further ado, I ask you to join me to welcome Dr. Ramzi Salti.
His name in Turkish is Halil, but it comes from the Arabic Khalil with a kha.
And it means sweetheart.
Beautiful. And in Arabic, a Khalil, Marwan, is a friend who stays up with you all night, who you can confide in. And honestly, this young man turned out to be my confidant. Because I went to the Abbasi department and I said, we are at Stanford, there are no events about Lebanon. Not at the time. Can we please do something? And he said, yes. And he worked with the amazing Rula. Wainik ya Rula. Rula over there, my queen, who along with Halil made this possible. And it was a very short time. And so I needed somebody to help me psychologically to get ready to give a talk about Lebanon during these times. And who does God send me? But one of the most amazing young people I've ever met, whose name is Christopher Alam, who turns out to work for NPR and has his own radio show, and it is called
Taksim Taxi, High FM Radio.
So, Taksim Taxi, with his DJ name, I'm going to reveal it, is Hakim. Taksim Taxi with Hakim. Beautiful radio show on NPR where you can hear Arabic music, but he also ended up interviewing me, and that interview I think has just been launched. And on top of all that, Thuraya, on top of all that, I happened to mention I don't have kids. And he goes, what do you mean? I'll be your kid. And of course, he is Lebanese background. He lives in Berkeley. And he came all the way today to help me as well. So shukran. And then for the daughter part, that was filled years ago by the one and only Natali Jabbar, who honestly, when I met her and I met her mom, I'm going to be a little personal and say she was missing her dad, who passed away, and I was missing having a kid or a daughter, and here comes Natalie, and it was a mutual affection, and she's been here helping me throughout this. She's right there, everybody. And then I have to thank just a few more people before we turn down the lights. Okay, so the first thanks goes to the Abbasi program in Islamic Studies here at Stanford and the Middle Eastern Studies Forum, both of whom are supporting this talk. Also, this would not be happening if it weren't for my students who day in, day out have been giving me unconditional love. We come to class and you see someone like Hannah Dweri here. Hannah Dweri, on top of being amazing on her own right, is the niece of director Ziad Dweri, who did a movie called West Beirut. That movie like changed the world. You've heard of it, you've seen it. Who hasn't seen it? You must see it. And when you see it, you'll go, and now I know the director's niece, sitting right there. Hannah Dweri and her class I've been teaching them for the past quarter. They have been my therapy. And I come in and they have a Lebanese flag or they have a song for, to lift us up. So thank you, Hannah, for being here and for being there for me. I think I learned as much as I taught this quarter. Now, everybody else, I see these beautiful faces, but there are just four I'm going to mention. AJ Alfred, وينك حبيبي, who's also was our Arabic TA. Now we're going to go to Turkish. I didn't correct me. Gizem, and Özgür, and Zara, who's over there, who's an intern. And last but not least, who has not heard of two professors who really are the heart of social justice at Stanford? They are Professor Robert Cruz, Bob Cruz, my brother. We have been connected for over a decade. He's younger than me, so I would say the kid, but the young man is also multifaceted and does music, and I featured his music on my show. But that's for another talk, because the music is not in Arabic. And then we have a very special guest here who came today. Professor, can you introduce yourself to everybody, please?
Anna Bigelow, Religious Studies.
So Anna is wearing the Palestinian keffiyeh today. When she walked in, I have heard Anna Bigelow all my life. But then I see this beautiful woman with a keffiyeh, and I'm like, who are you? And she says, I'm Anna Bigelow. And I'm like, oh my God, double, jackpot. So thank you, Professor Anna Bigelow, for coming in, Professor Cruz. And then I see all these other faces. I should say assalamu alaikum to everybody here. And I hope to create a little bit of a safe space today, because this is not a talk about Fairuz's joyous music. This is not, I'm sorry, this is not gonna be Dabke time, where as Arabs, every event we get up, right? I think you're getting me. We use every occasion to get up and dance and do a dabke. And I've been known, even at my age, Marwan, to like break into a dabke and make everybody get up and do it with me. But that's for joyous events, and inshallah, God willing, we will have an occasion for a more special event. Today it's going to be therapeutic music for Fairuz, and therapeutic music for Lebanon, and we cannot talk about Lebanon and what's going on without also mentioning Gaza. So Fairuz is actually perfect, because she has always stood with the Palestinians, and she's always stood with the Lebanese, and she has never taken sides. Like Fairuz has never ever said, because she happens to be Christian, she doesn't even like say that, Sunni, Shia, it doesn't matter. She has always stood firm with the Palestinians and with her fellow Lebanese. And that's what I want to emphasize today, is perhaps through Fairuz's music, the Arab world will start thinking of uniting, because the problem is not just the West and the colonial experience. Also, of course, the fact that the Arab world itself is always arguing among each other. But one thing they agree on is Fairuz. Go anywhere in the Arab world, from the Maghreb to the Maghreb, go to the Gulf countries. You will get into a lot of differences. But the second you say Fairuz, everybody has a Fairuz song. So here we go. I called the talk Fairuz and the Lebanon that was. But then, hey, somebody scribbled over the was and put is. You see that, AJ? That is very intentional, because I did not want to give this the feeling that Lebanon's gone. And so it's not just the Lebanon that was, it's the one that is, and maybe we should cross it again and put and would be, inshallah. And so I'm going to be speaking about Fairuz's songs chronologically, so you can see the growth in her songs. And for the past 6 months, I've been working on a playlist on YouTube, and this QR code will take you to the playlist. I'll also show the QR code at the end. So let's say Robert Cruz gets home and wants to revisit today's lecture and wants to go chronologically from Fairuz's first hit in the 50s to her last current hit in 2023. All you have to do is go here, and it will open this YouTube. This is a screenshot from the YouTube playlist. And it's hard enough to find all of Fairuz's songs. And I tried to find songs where she appears in the song, not just the music, so you can see her. And I put them chronologically. There's like 120 songs in chronological order of Fairuz, detailing her career. And so that you can follow along later. You can take a picture of the QR code and enjoy it, and then email me through my YouTube channel and tell me what song moved you the most or least or whatever. So here she is, our dear Fairuz. She has several, what we call in Arabic, laqab, which is, in English they call it a nickname, but it's just not, it's not a nickname, it's like a nickname with a capital N. You have to earn that, right? Like, if you're on your way, Christopher, but way too young to earn the laqab. But Fairuz has more than one laqab. Like, the big singers, Hannah, in the Arab world, like Kulthum, it's called Planet of the East, Kawkab al-Sham. Well, she earned it, she wasn't born. Fairuz has 4, minimum, if not more. Okay, so what are they? Yes, do you see some of them? If I say the Arabic Bob, will you say the English? Fairuz is known as Asfurat al-Sharq, which means
The bird of the east.
bravo, good Arabic skills. She's also known as Jarat al-Qamar.
The moon's neighbor.
Very good. Can you imagine being the neighbor of the moon? That's Fairuz. She's also Arzat Lubnan. Ruda, you should say it. Because if Lebanon is known for one thing, it's a cedar, it's right on our flag. And so she is a cedar. Somebody even told me she's the 7th column of Baalbek. I didn't write that in AJ, I should have. And finally, Safiratuna ila Nujum, our ambassador to the stars. Because when you hear Fairuz as an ambassador, she takes you to the stars. And Adnan, you don't need a visa. She'll take you. So the best way to introduce Fairuz is through a very small, short slideshow with an intro from NPR. I'm going to ask Natalie to turn down the lights as we introduce Fairuz through NPR. Oops, sorry. Okay, guys, I'm going to try this again. Of course, this was going to happen. And here's the slideshow with the NPR.
You don't have to be Lebanese to know this voice, but if you are, chances are this is a voice you've heard ever since childhood. Even if you were born and raised on the other side of the world, this voice probably sang to you from LPs and tape decks in kitchens and living rooms, without ever needing to ask. When you hear the words, I loved you in the summer, I loved you in the winter, you just know. This is Fairuz. Her real name is Nihad Haddad, and she was born in 1935 in a Lebanon that was still finding its place in the Arab world. The name Fairuz means turquoise in Arabic. The man who discovered her said her voice was like a rare gem, that it worked with both Arabic and Western music. Listen here to the way she sings the word Habibi, which means my darling.
Maybe bring the light just a little bit so I can see my keyboard. But I love that intro. I figured NPR did it best. So now you know her real name. And this is the Lebanon that I think about when Fairuz sings of Lebanon. I was born and raised in Lebanon, in a city called Hazmiye, in 1966. So I was old enough to see Lebanon at its best. Lebanon at the end of the 60s, the 50s, the 60s was known as the Switzerland of Lebanon, of the world, because it had the mountains and the skis, but then you could go down and within 40 minutes be at the beach, baking at the Mediterranean. Give me another small country where you can ski in the morning and swim in the evening. That is the Lebanon I knew, and I grew up in a very tolerant Lebanon. I did not know who in my, students in my class were Muslim or Christian or, there was none of that. It was such a beautiful coexistence, like it didn't matter where you're from, we're all united in Lebanon. And that is the Lebanon that Fairuz sings about. You guys know the capital of Lebanon is Beirut, and there will be songs about Beirut. And the Independence Day for Lebanon is November 22nd, 1943, and Fairuz is born in November 21st, so it's like almost on Independence Day. And actually, if Lebanon got its independence in 1943, Fairuz is older than the Lebanese Independence Day. Talk about a living legend. And so this is the Lebanon we all grew up. This is the Roche over here, this rock that overlooks Beirut. We call it the Roche. Supposedly, if you stare at that rock long enough, you will see the face of an old sailor metamorphosized in front of your eyes. At least that's what the Lebanese say. You're trying to visualize it, I see, because Fairuz in one of her songs talks about that rock as being the face of a very old sailor with the, having lived by the sea. So I'm going to start with my favorite Fairuz song of all time. No surprise to anyone, it's called I Love You, Lebanon, Bak Ya Lebanon. And after this, I'm going to ask you if you have a favorite Fairuz song. So here's Bak Ya Lebanon with English subtitles. Thank you, Natalie.
بسهلك بجنونك بسهلك بحبك
very significant that in the song she says, I love you, Lebanon, you're north, you're south. And with everything going on in the south of Lebanon, you know, these people who were expelled from their homes, and who inshallah will return with this very fragile ceasefire. You know, Fairuz sang this back in 1976 about a united Lebanon. Shmalak, Jnubak, your north, your south. It gains even more momentum when you think about what's going on in the south of Lebanon now. Okay, so that's my favorite Fairuz song. It is called Habbak Ya Lebanon. And what is your favorite Fairuz song? Okay. Professor Thuraya Abu Mahdi is a living example of someone who was born and raised in Morocco. This woman has 2 PhDs, speaks 8 languages, is not Lebanese, and yet will have, I'm sure, a Fairuz memory or song or something to tell you that she reached Morocco just before she even was known in Lebanon itself.
But first of all, thank you so much, Ramzi and the Embassy Program for organizing this amazing event. And what event? 19th-year birthday of Fairuz. Of course, in Morocco, all the big voices of Arabic words, such as the giant like Muhammad Abdul-Wahab, Ismahan, Kulthum, etc., and Fairuz. So it accompanied us from our childhood. And of course, it accompanied me in the university, as I always told you, in the morning. When I was in university, we used to go to have breakfast. And guess what the chef played? Fairuz, the morning song of Fairuz every morning. And it gave us, like students, a lot of dynamism and joie, etc. One of them that I love is and believe it or not, Fairuz accompanied me in my every morning routine from that moment of my university now. And for these last 14 months, without Fairuz, I couldn't really survive any time, and that I feel under the weather. I listen to Fairuz and I feel good. But thank you to Fairuz. Long life to Fairuz. Viva Fairuz, and thank you, Ramzi.
And you heard Dr. Thuraya mention that November 21st, that's a week ago, 2 weeks ago, was Fairuz's 90th birthday. So it's also befitting to have this talk to celebrate 90 years old and still around and still symbolic of the Lebanon that was, that is, and that will be. Anybody else wanted to just shout out the name of a Fairuz song or? You make this sad ballad about a dejected love. She writes his name on the poplar tree so that it lasts forever, and he writes it in the street where the rain washes his name away. Alfred, I didn't know you were. Professor Hill, do you have a favorite? Wow. And I went for the artery, for the heart. Atini Naya Waranni, which Khalil, I think you were going to say it too, yes, is actually a poem by Lebanese American poet Khalil Gibran. It was written actually by Khalil Gibran in his book The Prophet, a bestseller in the 60s in America, Spiritual Sayings. It was written in English. Did you know that? People assume he wrote it in Arabic. And then it was not translated, but Arabicized or Arabized, you know. So, but he actually wrote it in English. In that book, he uses Atini Naya Warani under the section called the procession. You could read the English, and of course Fairuz took the Arabic version of the poem, set it to music, and it became an instant classic. Atini Naya Warani. It's on the playlist if you want. Did you have one or not? Oh my gosh. You can tell somebody's been in love to a degree where she stayed up nights. Fairuz knows the pain, the insomnia. Yes, Habibi.
Hello, Shadi.
Oh, so he picked a song about a little boy called Shadi that Fairuz knew. They grew up together in the streets, well, in the song. And then there was like some kind of trouble in the distant mountains, and Shadi disappeared. He ran to the trouble to see what's going on. He disappeared, and the years passed, and the decades passed, and everybody grew older, but Shadi remained a small kid playing in the mountain. It's also very symbolic of who Shadi is. But that's one of the most beautiful, saddest tune by Fairuz. All right, I'm doing this impromptu, Christopher. Like they name a song I can talk. I defy you to name a song I do not know. So going back to Fairuz's biography, as we said, she was born November 21, 1934, which makes her 90 years old this year. Very modest beginnings, you know, one of those homes where you had to share the kitchen with other families, and they didn't have even a radio. So Fairuz always said, I grew up listening to music through my neighbors' windows, and whatever they were playing, I would sing along. And she credits that moment in how she decided that she would love to sing professionally one day. And then at 14, she joined her school choir. There she met a very famous musician, Muhammad Fleifel. He listened to her sing, and he says, you are no longer Nuhat Haddad. You are now Fairuz. One word. Because it means turquoise in Arabic, and he said that her voice was so pure hearing. It reminded him of turquoise, and that's what everybody knows her as Fairuz. I don't think many people even realize her real name is Nuhat Haddad, Nuhat Wadia Haddad, but there you go. And then she started working at the Lebanese radio station, and that was very crucial because her father was very conservative, did not want her to go on the radio at the time. The Lebanese radio was live, so there was no recording. She would go and she would sing live. And there, at the radio station, she met a very interesting man whose name is, well, first of all, I want to say that it was actually Halim al-Rumi who gave her the title Fairuz, not Muhammad Fleifel who believed in her first. But at the radio station, who does she meet? Her husband-to-be, their future husband. Asi al-Rahbani, who has a brother named Mansour al-Rahbani. They're known as the Rahbani brothers. Like Natalie, you don't have to mention Asi and Mansour, you just go the Rahbanis. The two Rahbani brothers with Fairuz formed like a trio. She would sing, they would write, and of course Fairuz ended up marrying Asi in Lebanon in 1955. Here they are on their wedding day, and they had 4 children. One of those children you should know. The other 3 maybe not so much. So the eldest, his name is Ziyad al-Rahbani. He was born in 1956, grew up to be a musical genius, still around, sort of a troubled rebel. He reminds me a little bit of the 60s rebellious spirit of Bob Dylan and things like that, but with an Arabic twist. Ziyad is her oldest, he's right here in the picture. The second child she had, his name is Hadi. And Hadi, now we know, We didn't at the time, Marwan. Hadi was born handicapped. He got meningitis as a child, and he was completely paralyzed. We're talking, this is, happening back in an era where the Arab world was not equipped. They didn't even have a wheelchair. And so they told Fairuz, well, you should put Hadi in an institution. This is not some, you can't have him living at home, She refused. To this day, she lives she's 90. Hadi's probably in his 60s. She still lives with Hadi. She takes care of Hadi. She never put him away. She would go on tours to America, etc., would come back with the latest technology. Once she found a wheelchair, she missed her flight, Christopher, so she could get the wheelchair on board to take back to Lebanon. So Hadi is still around, and they comfort each other, but it's also a side to Fairuz that nobody knows. You see her as a star, you don't realize every day she would go home to her beautiful Hadi. Then she had her daughter Layal. And Layal started following in her mom's footsteps. And unfortunately, Layal in 1987 had a stroke and died. So Layal was gone. And then she had her youngest, Rima. Rima Rahbani is the reason we get news about Fairuz today. Because Rima will sneak a picture of Fairuz and share with the fans when Fairuz is now, retired. So we will end today with pictures of Fairuz at 90. Yes, I got some. You will see Rima Rahbani like imprints on it. Rima, when she releases a picture of her mom, wants to make sure she reserves the copyright. So we'll be talking about Rima a little bit, and Ziad, of course, who took over his mom's career after his father, Asi Rahbani, got sick. So this is the golden era, Fairuz and the Rahbani brothers. This is Asi, the older one, and the other one is Mansour. They both passed away by now. They're the ones who started Fairuz on her singing career at the Lebanese radio. And the three of them released her first hit. It was called Aitab, Blame. Very sad song when you hear it. It's available. I didn't include it today, but you can find it on YouTube. You feel she's still a little kid, and she's trying to sing Aitab live. But we do have a recording available. But this summarizes the golden era of Fairuz. Between 1957 and 1979, Fairuz and the Rahbani brothers produced 20 stage musicals, that's full-fledged musicals, 2 hours with a soundtrack with orchestra, 3 movies starring Fairuz, all of them exist in color, and countless concerts, and a staple on Lebanese TV, with her TV specials. Look at this picture I love, because the Rahbani brothers and Fairuz came to America in 1971 for their first North American tour, and of course Marwan Hananiya, they had to wear the Texan hat or the cowboy hat, and to see them all three excited to bring a taste of Lebanon to America. And surprisingly, it was sold out shows. They did several cities. So after 1971, Fairuz became international. But the kind of music that Fairuz and the Rahbani brothers were doing or producing in the beginning was very radical. Because up till then, most Arabic music lasted 45 minutes per song. Half an hour would be considered short. With greats like Kulthum from Egypt. I mean, this grande dame would stand and sing for a good hour. I mean, her concert would have to be like 2 or 3 songs. It's over. Hour. But that's what audiences loved. It was a journey. You listened to the orchestra, she would sing. She would literally sit down, get up, You know, my father saw a film concert once, and then an hour and a half into it, he went home, he took a nap, he came back, went back in, and she was still singing. He missed one song. You know. But that was, you know, the predecessors of Fairuz in terms of Arabic music. It was these long things. And here comes Fairuz and the Rahbanis, and they decide, we're going to produce a memorable song in 3 minutes. And people said, what are you, crazy? Or are you just being like Western, where you could do a 3-minute song? It's not even an appetizer. And, you know, so they initially encountered resistance. Here's Fairuz talking about that initial resistance, Natalie, if you will.
كنا عم نخلق الموجة الفنية الجديدة اللي ما كانت موجودة ضد الفن اللي كان موجود. ما كنا محبوبين يعني أبدا، بس هيدي ما طولت ونحن كنا مصرين كتير على انه نتابع الطريق، ما كتير اهتمينا باللي كان عم ينقال عنا رغم انه كان قاسي كتير، ومشينا ومرقت المرحلة وكملنا الطريق.
Thank you, Natalie. So one of the rare interviews, Fairuz does not get interviews. She's very much, into keeping her private life private. But you were able to read the subtitles. Basically, after her initial resistance, she became the queen of the charts. Thanks to this song, Nassam Alayna al-Hawa. Rula, is there a Lebanese anywhere on earth with a pulse who does not hear Nassam Alayna al-Hawa and thinks of Lebanon and speak? You'll also see a baby in the clip, which is taken from one of Fairuz's movies. We're going to hear an excerpt. The baby is actually Rima, who is Fairuz's youngest daughter, who starred in the movie. And then Rima, of course, went on to produce Fairuz's last album. Are you ready to see the beauty that is Lebanon? Nassam Alayna al-Hawa. Every Lebanese, especially those who are outside of Lebanon, about the breeze of Lebanon reaches you wherever you are, and you think of this, you think of Fairuz, you think of the Mediterranean. This is Fairuz at her peak, and Lebanon at its peak. But you know what really was the crowning jewel in Fairuz's career? Was when she and the Rahbani brothers decided to perform in Baalbek. Bob, have you heard of Baalbek?
Yes.
Yes, I figured you did, so I didn't went into the history of Baalbek, but I did put some beautiful pictures of Baalbek, right? It's a city in Lebanon, very old, with the ruins still intact. Sadly, with the latest events, I heard Baalbek was kind of, I don't want to say destroyed, but affected. But this is still back in the 50s, late 50s, when Fairuz and the Rahbani brothers decided to start what is called Lebanese Nights in the Baalbek Festival. Began in 1957, and then she became a staple in Baalbek. Everybody would wait for the Baalbek festival that year to see what Fairuz and the Rahbanis had to offer. And they started with a few songs, but a few years later it was major musical productions with, you can see Fairuz here in black and white, with the orchestra and the dancers and the singer. And it was a play, and it had a meaning, and it had a soundtrack. Here are 3 LPs that were released of Fairuz in Baalbek. You stand on the Baalbek steps, and you are as close to the heavens as you can be. Fairuz would say, right over there in Baalbek, the heavens are close. And so when she sang, she got the title Neighbor to the Moon, Jarat al-Qamar. Now, I saw some skeptical people. Not you, sir, you've been amazing. They were like, come on, Fairuz can speak to the heavens. There's some people who think how is that so? I'm going to prove to you that she can. Through a brief interview with an Armenian Lebanese photographer who dedicated his life to Baalbek and Fairuz. This man would go without food or drink in order to get to Baalbek and take pictures of Fairuz, pictures that are now iconic. But he claims, see, it's not just Mirula, he claims that on a certain day, certain evening in Baalbek, when Fairuz was going to sing, it was cloudy. Not only, it was about to rain. What happened when Fairuz started to sing? I love this man.
من هيك بدي خبرك خبريه هي اللي صار بوجودي. انا كان يتصور مهرجانات فيروز ببعضها. بهاي المهرجان شي نهار غيوم مليان السما وقطمت الدنيا مش معقول هيك. بين البروجيكتورات اسقطات فيروز بينت الساعة بالمسرح من فوق اجى على راس التلة بلش يغني يا مر يا مر ليش ما بتطلع يا مر شي ما بتصدق انخزت كل الغيوم يلي فيها السما وقال تعالت برا لمعت كل بعلبك كأنه صار شمس بالنهار وهنيك أنا قلت فيروز إلى صوت إلى إيمان إلى دين حساسية هي وحيد بحكي مع السماء مع الله الله سمع صوتها وبعدت غيوم ولمعت بعلبك تيغني فيروز وينك يا قمر ليش ما بتطلع يا قمر
Do you believe me now? The guy was there, I wasn't. Name another singer who can disperse the clouds with her voice, Adrian. I mean, I love Beyonce, but does not change when she sings. So she became such a staple of Baalbek that on her 81st birthday, do you know what they did? They lit up Baalbek with images of Fairuz. She wasn't there herself, but commemorating 60 years of singing in Baalbek.
زغرت المساحات الصحاري عملتها قروش خضراء وورد زرعت الامل قريت معاك ايام من ايام الرحالين وكل الاعمال قليله رغم
So this was just a tribute to Fairuz on her 81st birthday. So that was, 9 years ago, my wife. Bob, do you think we should close the door? Because I see some of the audience is a little bit chilly. And then if we find it's getting stuffy, we can prop it open again. Okay, now, drama. 1979, Fairuz and her beloved Asi separated. This was a shock to everybody because the three of them, Fairuz, her husband Asi, and his brother Mansour, had produced everything since the 50s till 1979. The news was very difficult to digest, and everybody thought, well, that's the end of Fairuz. They separated personally. He's not going to be writing for her. Fairuz is over in 1979. Well, guess who pops up in 1979? He was only 17. And he said, you know what, Mom? I will take over where Dad left off. And since 1979, the 80s, it was a new Fairuz that would sing songs not by her husband, who eventually passed away in 1986, but she would sing the songs of her son, Ziad Rahbani, a musical genius, very eccentric, but a musical genius. But he had Fairuz, you saw Bob how elegant she is. He had her singing jazz, he had her singing experimental tunes, he had her singing street Arabic, and she would say, oh my son, are you sure? My image. And he would say, Mom, do it, because there's a whole new generation. And sure enough, those songs became huge hits, and this is the Fairuz you grew up with. This is not the Fairuz we grew up with, but the Fairuz you grew up with, which a lot of people always think she was always jazzy and experimental. No, there's a whole other Fairuz. Hopefully your generation, and I will go back in the archive. But hey, I am not at all against the new sound that Ziad Rahbani, her son, wrote for her. The very first song he wrote for her was in 1972. They were about to put on a play called the Mahatta, the train station, and in the middle of rehearsal, Asi had a brain hemorrhage, was taken to the hospital, and they had to go on with the show, and Fairuz had to sing without Asi there. This is 1972, so before they separated, obviously. And so she had to sing for the first time on stage without her beloved Asi standing there, conducting the orchestra, frankly, controlling every movement she had. He was not easy, Asi, Allah yarhamu. And so her son said, we need a song in here, and Dad is in the hospital. He wrote a song called Sa'aluni Nas. Look at these lyrics. This is what she sang while Asi was in the hospital. A song that was written and composed by her 17-year-old kid. So shall we do the English-Arabic thing? Marwan, you do Arabic?
Okay.
Or you do Inglisi? You do Inglisi. Okay. Sa'aluni Nas annak ya habibi.
People keep asking me about you, my darling.
كتبوا المكاتيب وأخذها الهوى.
They write letters that the wind pulls away.
بيعز علي غني يا حبيبي.
It's not easy for me to sing my love.
لأول مرة ما بنكون سوا.
When for the first time we're not together.
So I wanted you to see how Fairuz, I think it's the only time she ever really broke down on stage, because she's known to be very in control. I did find you a very old, you don't need to even lower the lights. It's a very old video, but if you pay attention, she's saying those words. And I think for the first time you're going to be able to get a glimpse of Fairuz really losing it on stage. But it's only for a second, so don't blink.
يا
was clearer, right? She actually cried. And people said it's the first time we see Fairuz cry. But it was a song for Asi, who, by the way, when he came out of the hospital, didn't quite enjoy the tribute and said, you shouldn't have talked about my personal health issues on stage through a song. But the song became so popular for anybody missing anybody that Asi later went up to his 70-year-old son and says, I approve. So we continue with the journey through her son Ziad. And this song I already played a part of when we did the NPR, and for time's sake I'm not going to play it, but this is so many, like your favorite. حبيتك بالصيف, حبيتك بالشتي. I loved you in the winter, I loved you in the summer. Now Bob, who loves Arabic music and is such a supporter of Arabic music, doesn't quite speak Lebanese Arabic. I guess I'll play a song, because you know what, I'm not going to cuss Bob. What does shitty mean? You're blushing. It's not in English. It means winter. Winter, right? Shitty. I mean, in Lebanese we don't say shita. We say shitty. And so, Hannah, how is the weather in winter? Well, there you go. So now you know how to say winter in Arabic. Will you ever forget? So when I play this to my American friends, they go, why is she feeling so, I'm sorry for the word, why is she feeling so shitty? I go, no, it's talking about winter. But then I guess there's a connection. My translation, my attempted translation, I have been trying to translate Fairuz songs into English because a lot of people try on YouTube, and I don't think they capture the nuances. So yeah, you can always Google Ramzi Salti Fairuz and find my dress, such as this one. Trying to make it accessible for an American audience. Okay. Fairuz is known also for another radical thing. You know, she would take songs from other languages and other cultures and make them Arabic. And I don't know why, like, people were like, oh, she's stealing her music from Russia. She's stealing her music from Spain. She's stealing, you know, a lot of them would say, oh, Fairuz, how, this is not an Arabic song. I don't know why there was such a resistance. I mean, people do that all over the world. You take I don't want to say appropriate. You take a song from another language or another culture, and you make it apply to you. So you Arabicize it. So there are three of them. The first one is based on Mozart's Symphony Number 40, and imagine taking that classical piece and having Fairuz sing it. You can imagine the controversy, Christopher, like Mozart, the Mozart fans were not happy, and the Arab fans were not happy. And yet the song is known and sung by everybody I know. The next one is taken from Russia. I don't speak Russian, but I guess this is the song. If anybody can speak Russian here, maybe they can help me. It was, you know, about the USSR and the glory of the USSR. It was inspired by the Russian Army march. Polyushka Polye, I'm sure I'm doing that. Any Russian speak? تحكي روسي? No. Okay. And so it was a very sort of like militaristic Russian Soviet song. But Fairuz took it and made it all about love and her love. I mean, she kept the melody. It was a really catchy melody and put Arabic lyrics. And the last one here is Li Beirut. This song, her ode to Beirut, to Lebanon, became so famous that people think that the Rahmanis did the melody. They didn't. But can you imagine a remake that becomes more popular than the original? So for time's sake, we're not going to play all three, but please look them up. Maybe do you want to hear her do Russian? Kanu ya habibi. So, I mean, this is an Arabic-Russian combination. Okay, Bob, did that sound Russian to you or Arabic? Arabic based on a Russian army dance, but had nothing to do with it. This song is the staple Ila Beirut. Okay, now I'm going to need help with the Spanish. Soraya Joaquin Rodrigo. What is the thing? Concierto?
Concierto de Aranjuez.
Okay, whatever she said. And so you all know this melody by this Spanish musician, but she changed it and made it known to Beirut. You can read the translation here as you hear this a very brief excerpt.
من قلبي سلام لبيروت وقبل للبحر والبيوت لصخرة كأنها وجه بحار قديم.
So you understand the reference now to the old sailor's face? Fairuz became very well known for singing about cities. She never sang for leaders, even though some leaders begged her to, aggrandize them. She refused, and she offended a lot of leaders who came and went in the Arab world. But she would sing to the cities and the countries. This is a beautiful song that I'm going to skip for time's sake, but it's called Ghannaytu Makkata. It's a song from Mecca. It's so beautiful. It was written in very difficult Arabic poetry by Said Aqil, who is a genius poet from Lebanon. And Fairuz is singing it in this very difficult classical Arabic. And yet even the most religious, the most conservative people in Mecca said shukran, she actually delivered Ghannaytu Makkata. What's ironic, and not that it matters, is that Fairuz is Christian, the poet is Christian, and the husband who composed the music is also Christian. And so people are like, you three Christians are going to do an ode to Mecca? Sort of how dare you? But after they saw how beautiful it was, and you can listen to it on YouTube, and I have a little translation, you'll understand. Because I want to move to her eternal love for the Palestinians. And I think that's where I want to pause for a moment. Can you believe a Lebanese Christian singer from we could let that guy in. Thank you, Runa. I mean, she's not Palestinian, right? But when 1948 happened, and consequently 1967, and the Palestinians were losing their land, and they were being expelled. You would think there'd be some Palestinian singer who would appear so as to represent the Palestinian cause. There were a few, Marwan, but nobody rose to the level of Fairuz and the Rahbanis. I mean, in their support and compassion for the Palestinians who, were now in refugee camps in Lebanon, or even integrated into Lebanese society. She sang for Jerusalem, she sang for the Palestinians, and she became so honored that in 1968 she was given a symbolic key to the city of Jerusalem, given by the Jerusalem Cultural Committee. So all of this was because of a song called The Flower of Cities, Zahrat al-Mada'in. When you hear Fairuz sing Zahrat al-Mada'in, you would be, I think most of you, there is subtitles, I think you should take a moment and reflect, because she talks about the churches, the mosques, and the temples. So Fairuz is talking about the Jerusalem that should be all three religions. But she's also talking about the seven, the mosques that have now been occupied, that can no longer be visited, and the churches. I'm going to play a short part from Fairuz's Zahrat al-Mada'in, the flower of cities, of all cities.
لأجلك يا بهية المساكن يا زهرة المدائن يا قدس يا قدس يا قدس يا مدينة الصلاة ترحل كل يوم ترحل كل يوم تدور في أروقة المعابد تعانق الكنائس القديمة وتمسح الحزن عن المساجد.
Yeah, I don't know anybody who doesn't get emotional hearing this song, and I think with everything that was happening in Gaza, this song suddenly became an anthem all over again for a new generation. Again, the message is that of peace and coexistence. And imagine that from 1967, when she sang this song, it still applies in 2024, unfortunately. Okay. Of course, the number one place she sang for, okay, we did Mecca, we did Jerusalem, but of course Beirut. Now again, because of the time restraint, I'm going to just tell you that you're going to see beautiful Lebanon on one side, and you're going to see ugly Lebanon on the other side. And Fairuz, during the Civil War, refused to leave. She had enough money to emigrate. And people would say, Lebanon's done for if Fairuz moves. She became Lebanon. She became a symbol for enduring Lebanon, and she still is at 90. So she sang for beautiful Lebanon, when Lebanon was considered the Paris of the Middle East, and she sang for ugly Lebanon and war-torn Lebanon. I want to tell you something very personal. This picture, if you look really close over here, you probably can't tell. It says Salti, that's my last name. This was our home in Lebanon, in Hazmiye, and they blew it up. And we left 2 days after this picture. We went through in a car, through the rubble, through Syria to Jordan, and thank God Jordan welcomed us. And then I graduated from Jordan and came to America. This is my last picture of my childhood in Lebanon. Unfortunately, I didn't want to use something from the internet. But if you look closely, you'll see M. Salti, my father's name on the door. The other one is Habaket Lebanon. You know the one, Professor Anna, the one about the north, the south. So again, I'm going to skip this, but you really should rewatch it in the context of the Civil War. This is another beautiful song for Lebanon, and it's called Ya Hawa Beirut. And if you look at the last few lines in English, it says the last two lines. It says, come back Beirut and our memories will return. So Beirut is gone and our memories are lost. But hey, if Beirut came back, so will our memories. It's called Sakkar Shawara. I guess I could play a quick part of it, Christopher, because I don't want to bore everybody.
سكروا الشوارع عتموا الشارات زرعوا المدافع هجروا الساحات وينك يا حبيبي بعدك يا حبيبي صرنا حب الصارخ صرنا المسافات اشتقنا للأيام السعيدة أيام الساري عالطريق عشت سير ومشاوير بعيدة ونتلاقى بالمطعم العتيق يا هوا بيروت يا هوا الهيام ارجع يا بيروت ترجع الأيام.
Again, my attempt to translate that song about Beirut right there in English. Her son Ziad Rahmani, we said, took over his father's role as her main composer, ended up making 8 albums with his mother. And they were all with this new jazzy sound that people initially found hard to digest. But this song went viral. Kifak Inta, which doesn't mean how are you, it means how are ya. It's very street. Kifak Inta, Malla Inta. The kind of words she's using, and this is the ones, Bob, where like she told her son, I mean, I know you make me sing jazz and like new stuff, but do I have to say Malla Inta, which means yo stranger? He said yes. And you can see it here, tell me stranger. So this song was actually triggered by an encounter with her son. Fairuz had stayed in Lebanon. Her son met some woman, they got married, they moved out of the country. He didn't even tell his mother. And then it didn't work out. Ziad, the son, came back to town, and who does he see in the parking lot by coincidence? Fairuz. And so she looked at him, her own son who had left without telling her, after he had a baby out in another country. And she says, how are you? And she says these words, how are you? I hear you have kids now, and I thought you'd left the country. And then she says, just tell me, stranger, who cares about countries, who cares about kids? I just want to know, my son, how are you? And he says that moment when she said that, he pulled out the paper and wrote what she said, which is where, I thought they say you have kids. Made it a song, and she goes, you really want me to sing that? Our little private conversation became her #1 hit of the 90s, called Kifak Inta.
كيفك أنا عم بيقولوا صار عندك ولاد أنا والله كنت مفكرتك برات البلاد كيفك أنا عم بيقولوا صار عندك ولاد أنا والله كنت مفكرتك برات البلاد شو بدي بالبلاد الله يخلي الولاد كيفك انت ولا انت.
Very different, right? Bob, that sounded a lot more like maybe quote unquote Western with, but it took off. In 2010, they released a song, Fairuz and her son Ziad, for her departed husband Asi. He died in 1986. They released the song in 2010, and it was an ode to Asi. And it was her singing to her deceased husband, saying, morning and night, I only think of you. Let me play a small part of it. there will be subtitles, and this one you should darken the room so we feel we're in the
تركت الحب أخذت الأسى صباح ومساء شي ما بينتسى تركت الحب أخذت الأسى شو بدي دور لشو عم دور على غير في ناس كتير لكن بيصير ما في غيره شو بدي دور لشو عم دور على غيره في ناس كتير لكن بيصير ما في غيره صباح ومساء شي ما بينتسى تركت الحب أخذت الأسى
Okay, Natalie, thank you. And this leads us to one of Lebanon's most horrible tragedies. And with Fairuz still living there, we're talking about 2020 when the port explosion happened in Lebanon. You've heard of that? I don't know, to this day everybody has who did it, who didn't do it, was it nice, but really it happened, and it was so horrific and unexpected, and so many people died, and so many buildings were lost, and so many lives, and Fairuz was there. And so who went to pay their respects to Lebanon? Our former colonizers. Macron, President Macron, who decided to go to Lebanon to give them support. Bless his heart if he meant it, or if he really can help, and especially with the current ceasefire, which I think we're going to need a lot of Western eyes on this ceasefire. But who did he go see when he landed in Lebanon? Hanadweri. You think he went to some presidential palace or some ministry? From the airport, he goes in the middle of the pandemic to Fairuz's humble home and pays homage to Fairuz, who received him wearing like the gear because of the COVID. If you look closely, Christopher, in the picture she's wearing like a see-through bracelet, but he's not. But anyway, sorry, Suraya, go ahead.
شو الوسام الفرنسي.
Oh yeah, and so he gave her this honorary Wissam. In fact, this beckons back to, look at all the accolades she's received from the French. So sometimes we go, well, it's good they like Fairuz, we can send Fairuz, she comes back with some funding for Lebanon, at least through the ticket prices that she gets charged in France and then distributes to the Lebanese. And so we're getting now to Fairuz today. Fairuz at 90. We're almost done with this talk. Fairuz, since the Gaza war and since the spillage into Lebanon, has been very silent. She has only agreed to sing, and she sang this for Gaza actually before Lebanon. And it's a prayer, so she does still sing, but it's very low-key. She'll go to a church, not tell anyone, and sing to the Lord about until when do we have to suffer of this? So people in Gaza and people in Lebanon are talking about the innocent civilians. In both places, take this prayer, Ila Mata Ya Rab. And thanks to her daughter Lima, we got to see Fairuz at age 80, in the late 80s. Those are obviously by Rima Rahdani. But those are the only 4 pictures we have of Fairuz in the past 10 years, thanks to Rima who took them. In this picture you can see Marwan. Fairuz, her daughter Rima, that's the genius son Ziad who took over. And this is Hadi, who's still alive, although he's in the wheelchair, and she takes him with her to church. The only missing child is Layal, who passed. She passed in the 80s. But this is Fairuz today, very somber, very spiritual, thinking for a better tomorrow. It's very short. So a very small part of the prayers where she says, "Until when, O God, are you going to look away from me? Take mercy upon Lebanon. Take mercy upon us." This is in the news last month. Part of the Israeli shelling hit the Palmyra Hotel in Baalbek, you know, the city. And the hotel there, which is a historical site, always reserved room number 17 for Fairuz. So for the 30 years she would go to Baalbek, that was her room. And it tells you something when that room got hit by a bomb and a shell. And the room and the hotel, the Palmyra Hotel, is now in ruins, as is Fairuz's room. So that's when we saw Fairuz in the news, is to say Fairuz's room has been bombed, at least not her residence. And so here we are, 90 years old. Happy birthday to Fairuz. Last month she turns 90, and as you can see, every language, from French to Arabic to English, the Nahar, the newspaper of Lebanon, dedicated an entire issue to her, celebrating her 90 years. And we hear through her daughter Rima, who lives with her, that her mom has been very moved by the birthday greetings, but is in no way happy about what's going on in Lebanon. If you'd like to know more about Fairuz, there are 3 officially released DVDs. They're at Green Library, and they have English subtitles. Delve into those, they're over here. If you're into podcasts, this is the NPR podcast I started with. You can listen to the whole thing on NPR. And the French Radio France did an hour-and-a-half podcast on Fairuz, her life in French, with excerpts. So maybe you're doing the French version of what I just did today. This book, called Fairuz and the Arab Diaspora, by Professor Dima Isa, is one of the finest books I've ever read on Fairuz. It was released last year. This is brand new, 2023. And I promised Professor Dima to mention her book because it's really worth it. And a poem written by someone who Natalie introduced me to, a poet named Zena Hashem Beck. She wrote a poem for Fairuz. Now that we've made all these references to Shadi, the boy who disappeared, to the Lebanon, maybe the poem will make sense. All becomes old, becomes older, dies inside. Alia's eyes are the most beautiful. Shadi, lost forever, and Watani, my country, remains a child. Habibi kissed me. We looked for a place to hide. He said he liked my Hard Rock Cafe sweater. All becomes old, becomes older, dies inside. It's a beautiful poem by Zena Hashem Beck, who kindly sent me the e-book called the Arabi Song, in which she writes poems in English to Fairuz, to Kulthum, to Asmahan, to Abdul Wahab. There are poems written in English for each of these great people. And so I promised her today to read part of her poem, Fairuziyat. So we're going to be ending, but this is Fairuz in the age of hip-hop. Did you know, like Fairuz, who knows The Weeknd? Of course Hannah's gonna know. You know The Weeknd. Me and Suraya didn't know The Weeknd. We thought it just was a weekend. He's a singer, he's an artist in his own right? His name's The Weeknd. He has a very, there's hip hop, there's whatever. Imagine Fairuz like peaking as a mashup or a remix or a remake or a sample with The Weeknd. Tell me what you think, Miss Dwayne.
بعدك حبيبي بعدك حبيبي والهوى بعده هوى خليك بالك نسهر الليل سوا Can I dream again والهوى بعده هوى I couldn't breathe again
It can get much more hip hop too. Okay, so that was, she has one with Biggie, she has one with the Tupac. So Fairuz lives on. Finally, and I'm not going to play this today because it has very graphic lyrics, but it's so powerfell. It's a song by Macklemore, and it's called Hind's Hall. Hind is a little Palestinian girl who was killed in the shelling in Gaza. And Macklemore called his song Hind's Hall in the name of Hind. And this guy, Macklemore, took Fairuz's Ana La Habibi and sampled it throughout. It's a heartbreaking song, but it's also an indication of the new generation, represented over here, still have Fairuz on their mind. So thank you so much for letting me take you on this journey. This was very emotional today. I'm going to leave things, if anybody has a comment in the last, or a question, or anything. Yes, Ziad.
Also Shakira still sings to...
Oh yeah, I should have included Shakira. Shakira, who's half Lebanese. Afghani Lebanese. Shakira is half Lebanese. She's also half Colombian, but like the Lebanese don't acknowledge the Colombian part. She's half Lebanese, half something else. But yeah, she took Altininaya Warani, and she would start her concerts. So this is an ode to Fairuz, and do Altininaya Warani in Spanish. So yes, Shakira is a Fairuz fan as well. Does anyone have any comments, or did you? Yes, thank you.
I think I speak on behalf of more than myself in this room when I say that this has been the most spectacularly entertaining. You have involved me in Beirut in Lebanon using her music in an astonishing manner, absolutely astonishing. The amount of work that you put into this must be extraordinary.
She's worth it.
I cannot thank you enough.
Thank you. What is your name, sir?
Don Emerson.
You are Don Emerson. We're going to remember Don Emerson.
No.
No, because I think getting Don, not knowing the name, and look at an hour, 90 minutes, we've converted Don. Thank you, Don.
Well,
He grew up in
I have
Lebanon.
to
Oh, you
explain.
did?
I have to
Okay.
explain. Right?
Yeah.
One of the reasons I'm here, other than the fact, as Javier knows, that I work. Well, anyway, never mind that. I'm an academic. I'm a pseudo-academic, not a real academic, but a fake.
I think that's more real than the so-called real academics
But
right
it so
now.
happens. It so happens that in 1957, I graduated from high school. I was in the American Community School on the Corniche
Oh, wow.
in Beirut.
Oh my gosh.
And you have brought back all of these memories, my God. I mean,
Of
it's
Fairuz.
been,
Do you
Of course, of
remember
Beirut.
hearing her on the
Oh,
radio?
yes, of course.
And at Baalbek, back then, he was
yes,
still doing
I was
the
in
Baalbek.
Baalbek for that international festival.
Stephanie and Matt.
Yeah, I mean.
We need to get him in the Stanford Middle East Ensemble because Stephanie and Matt are both musicians and singers for the Stanford Middle East Ensemble that does a lot of recitals on campus for Fairuz and others. Thank you guys for coming today, by the way. Don, thank you. Will you please keep in touch with me
Yes,
and interact
I do want
with
to say
our...
one other little thing.
Please.
And, there are two kinds of professors. There are professors that know when to shut up, and there are professors who do not know when to shut up. And I am the latter. I have to be very, very careful. I had a question in my mind that I was going to ask, but I'm not going to ask it, because this is much more interesting.
No, but you can, he can ask. Are you serious?
The question that I was going to ask, unfortunately, we're not in Beirut. We're in the United States of America, and if the request that apparently has been made, or the preference that has been expressed by our next, I hate to say this, President of the United States, if that request is adopted, then a gentleman who you may have heard of, I have not, Masad
Trump's
Son
yes,
the father of his son.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Right.
Masad
Well,
Boulos.
you're way ahead of me.
Yeah.
So-
well, the Lebanese are talking about nothing else now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That was my question.
Yeah.
In other words, what do you think of that? And then I want to put a little bit of a, can I just say one more thing? I'm sorry, I know everybody's probably ready to go home. One of the things that has always struck me about Lebanon, amazing, and I've always thought of it as a tremendous asset, is that Lebanon is international, partly because of its location. My God, talk about a cosmopolitan country. Oh my God. Not long ago, because I am in touch, I'm an alumnus of ACS, I learned that the street address where the high school is located has been renamed to Nigeria Street.
Oh, wow.
It's 67 Nigeria Street. And of course, immediately, Nigeria, wait a minute, this is Lebanon. Nigeria, I don't think it's anywhere near Lebanon. Come on, what is it? And of course, as you look into that, and this involves Boulos. I mean, if I had time, I would explain the connection.
I would love to talk to you after.
Yeah, he's got a
Talk to
lot
you
of
in a few
investments
minutes.
in Nigeria.
I would love to at least get each other's
Oh,
contact
sure, no,
info.
but I just
This is so worth pursuing
no.
because of is that a good thing for Lebanon or a bad thing, in terms of Boulos?
Yeah, right.
He's not exactly, the fact that he's Lebanese, they're celebrating. But, the fact that he's so closely allied with Trump and the history of
Yes.
Trump hasn't been very encouraging.
Right. Now he's part of the family, so, right.
Not that,
But
Biden was-
let me ask a different question. That's a nasty topic, a terrible topic. Here's a different question. My impression of Lebanon has always been that it is so thoroughly international. I mean, the different the different groups of faith. I mean, where else do you find this you've got Christianity, you've got different versions of Islam. I mean, and then you have secularism, and you have the French colonization. I mean, it's a potpourri, as we would say. It's amazingly diverse. So what does that mean for the nationalism of Lebanon?
That's a really good question. Because Lebanon has 14 acknowledged sects that were living together in peace, and there was, they just have these laws where the president has to be Christian and the vice president has to be Sunni, and and that can be seen as positive because every population, according to the percentage, is represented in the government, but it also means that it can't be the best person for the job. So Bob, if you're not Christian, you can't be president of Lebanon. You can be vice president. So that is celebrated in the Lebanon I knew, but that is what eventually led to the Civil War and the repercussions. Khaled from Tunisia came to my Fairuz talk. What's your favorite Fairuz song? And I know you have to go.
I'm more of a Ziad guy. to be
Ah,
honest.
okay, I'm telling you, Ziad, her son, is the cool generation. He made his mother sing jazz. Does anybody want to say any word before we adjourn? You guys have my name. I have a show called Arabology about Arabic music, arabology.org. This is the barcode to get to the Fairuz extensive playlist. Feel free, but please interact with me. If you feel like you woke up on the wrong side of the bed, listen to Fairuz, as Professor Boumadi said, and suddenly your morning becomes clear. Trust me. Try it. Anybody want to say anything? All right. So, shukran. I know it is difficult emotionally.